Google principal engineer to Uber's CTO's office to chief scientist at Anyscale to leading Gen AI at Canva. And then you stopped. You took a 3-month career break to reskill. Can you walk me through what happened?
Yeah, so it turned out to be much longer than a 3-month career break. It basically evolved into my... But I think what I saw evolve is, I felt like I had learnt everything I possibly could from the corporate world. And in terms of my life balance and what I wanted to work on, and in terms of where AI was and where AI is now in terms of enabling a single person to build viable businesses, I thought this was the right time. I spent it learning how to use Claude Code and how to build code efficiently with AI, and to get back to the application building thing and really get, my hands dirty again. That's what I spent it on. And I came to the conclusion at the end of that 3-month period that AI was now strong enough that you could actually build entire applications, entire businesses using AI to boost your productivity. The other thing is it allowed me personally, I'm very interested in this idea of Islam and AI, but that takes time. And, if you want to do a good job of that, it doesn't really very well align with life in corporate America. And so I felt like this was the right time for me to restructure things so I could devote more of my time to that, to projects like Ansari, which is an Islamic AI assistant, and to educating the community about AI. So I've given a course called AI for Imams a few times now.
Love it. What are you building at Cluesmith? What did you see during that break that made you say, I need to build this myself?
So I'm going on a crazy adventure. I'm trying to see if I can create a bootstrapped micro venture studio, right? And what I mean by that is, I'm not trying to build like $1 billion business. My goal is to graduate 2 $1 million ARR projects per year into successful businesses that sustain themselves. And so AI allows me to do that. And so I'm building a sequence of projects one after the other. And the first of those is something called multi-sage. And the problem with any one AI is it might have blind spots. But if you ask 3 AIs at the same time and synthesize their answers, then you have a much better chance of avoiding any blind spots. And we kind of do that anyway now. People will sometimes, if it's an important enough question, they'll take the same question and copy paste it into Gemini and into Claude and into OpenAI and then compare the results manually. Well, why don't we just automate that process? Why don't we ask all 3 AIs and then actually have the AIs debate with one another to arrive at a better quality, higher quality answer? And that's my first product off the rank. But I hope to launch more and more products in future as well.
I want to actually move to something a little spicy, talk a little bit about AGI and what you think about it. I think you wrote that anyone who says AGI is imminent is selling something or part of a cult.
I think or a dilettante,
and then
right?
You're right. And then Dario Amodi, of course, obviously you know him, stood at Davos, I think or a couple months ago and said we're 6 to 12 months away from AI doing most of what software engineers do. Who's right?
So, so it's not about me, but if you actually have a look at the surveys of professionals who build AI, more than 76% believe, more than 75% believe that, what we have now is not AGI and won't get us to AGI. Right. And so that means that, that's a 3-to-1 majority, right? Like there's obviously something going on there, right? Dario has something to sell, like he's part of a cult. I think, Anthropic is kind of a cult. I don't mean that necessarily, in a condemning way, but he's been saying that we're 6 to 12 months out from, having AI that will be AGI 6 to 12 months ago, right? So it's always 6 to 12 months out. And he's been wrong about these assessments in the past. So he's category 3, belongs to a cult. Examples of the other ones, Sam Altman is a good example of someone who's trying to sell you something because he's trying to set up regulatory barriers to give his company OpenAI an advantage. And then there are the dilettantes, the people who think they know the field but don't. And I would put Elon Musk in that category, right? Like he thinks he knows AI, but he doesn't. He hasn't really built AI systems, right? He's just doing crazy stuff like linear extrapolation that doesn't really work in the case of AI and misunderstanding like how the stuff actually works.
Right. You don't think XAI is gonna get to anywhere, I suppose.
Well, not given what's been happening there recently. From what I understand, their top leadership has just imploded.
Them have left, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them have left.
I don't think so.
Right. So
was that spicy enough for you? Insulting 3 of the top people in our field. Yeah.
I know.
Even if I wanted to get a job now, I'm not sure that I would be able to get a job.
I mean, if you want, if you want to, we'll
I
cut
don't
this off.
care,
It's
like,
okay.
honestly.
No,
No,
but that
put it.
was
I don't mind.
spectacular to me. But
Yeah.
you know, seriously, where do you think what's missing? Like, what are we doing wrong? Why are we not there? I guess you're on LeCun's
Yeah.
camp, right? From Meta, who's left
So
after
I think there's a few,
12 years.
so a few different things. Number one is it works really well where the distribution of the training data matches what you want it to do. So, writing Next.js applications in TypeScript using Postgres and, like that's a very, very well trodden path, right? But the minute you go off the reservation a little bit, you start to see that the AI is not as strong. So for example, I do a lot of 3D design using an open source CAD programming language called OpenSCAD, and AI just does not work for that yet because, OpenSCAD's nowhere near as popular as Next.js, right? And then I think the other thing is that AI does not yet have metacognition. It doesn't know how to take a step back and analyze like when it's getting stuck. Plow straight into a wall, not, without any awareness of, well, wait, maybe I need to think about this. A good example of this is if you just ask AI to cluster like 300 labels, it will happily try to do it, but it will do a really, really crap job of it because it, clustering 300 categories or 300 text labels, it breaks the attention model that lives at the heart of large language models. And there has to be this moment of metacognition where it goes, wait, I'm a large language model. This is not going to work for me. I'm going to suck at this. I have to kind of take a step back and realize what my weaknesses are. Maybe do this in a semi-deterministic way or use another tool. That metacognition isn't there. And so I think those are the two things that are really missing. And then the final one is I think talking about AGI without embodiment is kind of useless, right? Like we are not pure digital creatures, right? We have an existence in the physical world. And I don't think AGI is good enough in the physical world and yet to be taken very seriously. It's still like, and I think robotics is, for me, embodied AI in the form of robotics is a necessary criteria for proving AGI.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Who in the space could be someone that is not someone who's building a company or something, but is there maybe a research paper that you've read or someone that you think in the space is actually having the right mindset and he's thinking that you respect and maybe
Yeah.
read a lot from?
I mean, I have a huge amount of respect for Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind. I think he's proven himself over and over again. And he has a very practical bent. And he cares a lot about making AI very practical. And that's why he got a Nobel Prize, right? Like solving the protein folding problem, right? Like that's a great thing to have on your resume, right?
Of
And
course.
no one else that's in AI can kind of has a Nobel Prize. I mean, for really solving that that way. And so, yeah, I think that he's someone that I admire who's somewhat balanced on this and acknowledges that probably we need 2 or 3 more breakthroughs. But that doesn't stop us, practically benefiting from this stuff now.
Of course. Okay, I want to shift to something that you have mentioned, which is Ansari. You built Ansari, which is an open source, again, an open source Islamic AI that have been answered 30,000 questions or answers 30,000 questions a month in 20 plus languages, which is incredible. Also manages this published Can You Fatwa Chop with AI. Using Ansari as the case study, what happens when you put AI in the hands of people asking questions about faith?
Well, I think if people want to achieve a fatwa, right, you can prompt inject into an AI to get it to say what you want, right? So if people's intentions is sincere, AI can be an incredibly powerful tool. But just like you can fatwa shop on the web, you can prompt inject into AI to get it to say what you want. But, I think the thing that I really am proud of with Ansari is that it's very grounded and that it gets the citations right and it does all of the boring stuff because it's a very tightly constrained retrieval augmented generation system that it's not going to go too far off the reservation. Now, does that limit what it can do? Yes, it does. But I think that's a reasonable trade-off for now. And I think there's the potential there for us to do more in the future. And I'm starting to explore that. And there's other websites now that are starting to come up. One that I really want to highlight is usul.ai, usul.ai. And that is like a different take, right? Like on Ansari, we have like 5 or 6 different sources. They're like, well, we're going to do 3,000 sources. And so it's just really fun to be, part of this moment in history where AI and Islam are coming together. and the
Yes,
community is
definitely.
working out what their response will be.
Right, 100%. Uh, I think you touched a little bit on the RAG, right? I think you said before that
Yep.
you'd never build a non-RAG app again. What did you mean by
I'm
that?
not sure I'd go that far. Well, I definitely wouldn't build a non-RAG app in the AI space. And when I say RAG, I don't necessarily mean RAG the way that we do it now. But what I mean is something that's tightly coupled to the sources, and where the sources of information, I mean, that's one of the great things about the Islamic faith is our sources are so strong, right? The Quran is universally agreed upon amongst our community. The Sunnah, there's a methodology to the Hadith that's very consistent and has evolved historically. So what I mean is I'm definitely not going to build something that's not tightly coupled to the sources of Islam for that type of application. I think if you let AI loose in a domain where there is as strong a source as there is in the case of Islam, you're kind of not necessarily designing things in the best way possible. So, I mean, I've seen. I mean, if you do that, you get some very untethered results. You get ChatGPT claiming as recently as 6 months ago that washing your knees is part of wudu, right? Like, and that's the type of craziness you get if you
It
don't
still makes crazy
ground.
mistakes like this.
Yeah. Or I mean, the other thing is it doesn't tend to make up hadith as much, but it does make up the references to the hadith, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
if
of
it
course.
says that a hadith exists, it probably exists, but it tells you it's hadith number 427 in Bukhari, and you look up hadith 427 in Bukhari, and it's not what ChatGPT says it is, right? And that's why the kind of turning it on its head and looking up the hadith first, and then asking the AI to synthesize an answer based on the hadith, which is what retrieval augmented generation is the right approach versus asking the AI for its opinion and then it kind of trying to reconstruct the hadith from its memory, right? Like
Right, right,
that's not the right approach for us to use for Islam.
right. And that's why it's incredibly important to have people like yourself be building applications that tackle these things, right? People really do, they seem to have like very solid relationships with their AI.
Hmm.
And if you ask a question about related to Islam or any other faith, right, and you get an answer that is not true, and that is very dangerous. That is very
Yeah.
dangerous. So it's good. It's something very good. Right. So before Ansari, you spent 8 years running AMCRAN. How do you pronounce?
AMCRAN.
Oh,
That was a long time ago.
is it
The Australian
AMCRAN?
Muslim Civil Rights Advocacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Australian
Yes.
Muslim Civil Rights Advocacy Network. That was in the mid 2000s, right? So that was a very, very different world. It was post September 11. Countries around the globe started introducing anti terror legislation that was overly broad and effectively discriminated against Muslims. And so we felt it was very important to equip the Australian community, where I was at the time, with the right tools to deal with that challenge and to challenge that legislation, to help the Muslims understand it and to campaign against it where it went too far. And so, yeah, that's something that we did. And we did things like produce an ASIO, ASIO is like the Australian version of the FBI. So we had like, imagine that we had a document that says, FBI, the police, anti-terror laws in you. And we had 4 editions actually of that document. And, we would share that document with people, do community education so that people knew their rights. But that was a long time ago,
It was. I
which
know.
is interesting.
What have you maybe learned in that period? Doing this.
I think it was earlier in my career. I think one of the things that I learned is that you do good deeds, or you do what you hope are good deeds, and hopefully your intention is correct. And you see the fruits of that much later sometimes, right? Like I was in Doha, Qatar recently and at a conference, and someone came up to me and said, "Do you remember that Asia Police and You thing that you did?" Yeah, well, I was the editor on the 4th edition, and it really was a good
Oh,
document. Like, it was really a great experience for me. I love the way that you organized it. And so you see, like, the long after, if you've completed something for the sake of Allah, you see the echoes of that in your future. And it's a reminder that, these things can be a sadqa jariya, and it's a worthwhile
of
investment,
course,
right?
of course.
Like long after the people who built that document are gone, and the inspiration and the footprints of that remain. And that's why I think working with the Muslim community is one of the most rewarding aspects from a worldly and a hereafter perspective. Like that organization came to an end just because, we couldn't really work out a succession plan fully for it. but people took the torch and carried it forward, and organizations were inspired by that organization that we built and undertook some work in the future too. So yeah, it's it's just every so often I'm reminded that a good deed done in the past can often have echoes far beyond what you expect it to have.
I want to talk about. I want to shift the topics maybe back to AGI and how things are moving. There's $700 billion in AI infrastructure this year that has been spent. 95% of enterprise AI pilots show no return. What's the biggest unsolved problem that isn't getting enough attention, in your opinion?
That's a really deep and complex question. I think people don't really think through the life cycle of AI and like how it would play out in practice. It's not usually the AI that's like in many of these projects, it's not the AI that turns out to be problematic. It's the questions like the adoption and like, well, how do people use it on a daily basis? How does it adapt over time? All of those kinds of questions. So, I mean, I think there's still a learning curve to how we adopt AI. And I think also just frankly, there's a lot of skepticism about AI that slows down its adoption. I think often the ones that fail are the top-down mandated uses of AI, whereas the ones that succeed are the ones bottom-up. And so I think one thing organizations should be thinking about is not these $300 billion investments across 400,000 people type scenarios, but like how can we encourage individuals who want to make their work more efficient using tools like NA10 or something like that? How can we facilitate wide-scale bottom-up adoption of AI? And I think that's an approach that is foreign to the way top-down way that many organizations are run. Some organizations are better at bottom-up than others, but generally, as a pattern, I'd say they bias towards top-down, and bottom-up might be the right approach for most companies for AI.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
In every organization, there's like, if you look at the population, there's basically, there's one of the old rules I learned is that like, there's a security rule of thumb, right? There's 20% of people are inherently good, 20% of people are inherently bad, and 60% are opportunists. And I think that same kind of mentality works with AI. In the sense that 20% of people love AI no matter what. 20% of them will despise AI no matter what. It's really the 60% that are in the middle that kind of are just going to float along. So what you do is you empower that 20% that's kind of pushing the boundary of how AI can be used, and enable them, that 20%, that 1 in 5 people that's in an organization that has kind of a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit and is looking at how to make themselves more efficient using AI. And so rather than top-down mandates that thou shalt use AI and we're going to build this system that, allows, AI at every part of our company, it's these top-down efforts, it's these bottom-up efforts that I think may actually pay dividends in the long term.
Right. I get that. Final question, and then we're gonna do a quick fire round, and I'll explain to you what that will be. But final question is: if someone watching this wants to be great at building with AI, not just using it, but really building with it, what should they focus on?
I think the key thing is just experimentation and just trying stuff and kind of having this growth mindset about you and your relationship with AI, and that's very important because it's a new technology and people don't really understand how to use it anyway. And number two, it's changing all the time. And so if you're not experimenting all the time and, when something crazy comes out like OpenClaw, trying it, or, when people add new capabilities, testing it out and seeing what the implications are, I think that's what you have to do. There has to be this kind of entrepreneurial learning spirit approach to AI and just trying to do stuff and seeing what sticks and what doesn't stick. I have this idea that, in the future, like in the era post-AI software development era, right, which is, I do think that, software development will change over the next 5 years. And what used to take a team of 20 can be done by a team of 2. In that world, who succeeds? The people who succeed are the people who are entrepreneurial in nature. Entrepreneurial generalists are the people that will benefit the most from AI. And so really that's what I think people should start to target themselves towards, which is, how can I be an adaptive person that learns, experiments, iterates, tries things with this idea of continual improvement as a philosophy, and not the person who does the same job every day? Because anything that is regular, where you do the same job every day, that's exactly the prime candidates for using AI, right? So it's the things that are pulling things together in ways that AI can never do, right? Defining the right problems, talking to people, understanding the context. That's really that's the genre of people that will succeed, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now.
And when you say generalists, I assume you mean they don't have to be software engineers.
Yes, they don't have to be software engineers. But again, software engineering is where this revolution is happening right now, right? Like right now, it's software engineers. Software development is a thing where LLMs are just having a ridiculously outsized impact. That same trend will spread industry through industry, right? So it will start off in software engineering, and then it will spread to marketing, and then it will spread to legal, and then it will spread to medical. And in each stage, it's going to be growing, but it's the entrepreneurial people in each of those fields that embrace the AI that are going to be successful.
Yes.
So right now, probably someone who has a software engineering background has an advantage because that's where the technology is strongest. But longer term, I think it'll start to spread out far more evenly.
Got it. All right. Moving to our quick fire round. I'm gonna ask you very short questions, and I expect very short answers. AGI arrives before 2030. True or false?
Unlikely. False. That's 4 years away, man. Like that's really close.
You're right. Okay. Vibe coding, chainsaw or toy?
I like chainsaw, but it's for the reasons that you don't like, which is chainsaws are dangerous if you don't know how to use them, right? So it's definitely a chainsaw, but that's not the reason to use it. That's the reason to be cautious when you're using vibe coding using AI.
Got it.
So yes, it's a chainsaw in the sense that you can do a lot, but you can also hurt yourself pretty badly.
Got it. Okay. One tool every developer should learn in 2026.
Claude Code. No, that's a no-brainer.
100%, yeah. AI will create more jobs.
You have to know Claude Code inside out. Sorry?
Yes, no, I 100% agree with you. AI will create more jobs than it destroys.
Eventually true, but I don't know if that's going to happen now. So this one can't be a brief answer. The short version is AI is going to generate surplus wealth. The question is, who's going to benefit from that surplus wealth? Will it be just making, Larry and Sergey richer, or will it be benefiting society as a whole? I mean, I really think it has the potential to remove the need to work for humanity as a whole if the distribution problems are solved.
Ooh, really? This is Elon Musk's take as well on this.
Lightning strikes sometimes. Maybe I'm agreeing with Elon Musk about something for once. But I do think the concept of universal basic income and AI are linked, because AI enables a surplus for humanity that may allow for UBI to be available if that was something humanity decided it wanted to do. But the question is, will it decide to do that or not? Or will it just make, mint, the first 1,000 trillionaires?
Okay, last one. Natural language fully replaces code when? Now meaning pretty close to something, but like the last 5% is very difficult, right?
Yeah, there'll always be corner cases, right? So I think one of my favorite, again, you asked me all these tricky questions, is my favorite quote is, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. There are areas right now where natural language is good enough to replace programming languages. And it's for those kind of standard applications, right? But it's not good enough for like medical research or something like that, or like algorithmic work, right? But for your run-of-the-mill application, I think it's ready. You just need to structure the natural language work in a particular way.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.